No contact flips the power dynamic instantly because it forces a woman to face the emotional reality she never expected to confront. When a man pulls away completely, when he stops calling, stops texting, stops pursuing, and stops trying to fix things, something fundamental shifts in the emotional equation. A woman who once believed she had all the time in the world suddenly finds herself without the attention, validation, and emotional presence she had grown accustomed to. This sudden absence isn't just silence, it's a psychological jolt. It interrupts her expectations, rewires her emotional rhythm, and creates a void that her mind instinctively tries to fill. And in relationships, the mind hates a vacuum. When you disappear, she begins to feel the weight of that emptiness. What makes no contact so powerful is that it disrupts her assumptions about you. Most women, especially when withdrawing or pulling away, expect the man to chase. They expect him to fight harder, to plead, to explain himself, to prove his worth. It's a script they've seen play out dozens of times, whether in their own lives or in the lives of their friends. But when you, the one she believed would always be available, suddenly vanish, it forces her to question everything she thought she knew. She expected pursuit, instead, she gets silence. She expected reassurance, instead, she feels uncertainty. And uncertainty is where emotional longing starts to grow. The moment you stop trying to win her back, she is left alone with her thoughts, and those thoughts are often far more powerful than anything you could have said. She begins to wonder why you're not chasing her, why you're not begging for another chance, why you're not reacting. She questions whether she meant as much to you as she believed, and once doubt enters her mind, emotional curiosity begins to rise. She may replay conversations, rethink past interactions, and even romanticize moments she once dismissed. Your silence makes her analyze the situation more deeply than your presence ever could. No contact also instantly restores your value in her eyes because it shows that you are not a man dependent on her affection to feel stable or whole. When you walk away with calm confidence, you signal strength. Women are drawn to strength, not force, not control, but composure. When you stop over-communicating, stop over-explaining, and stop trying to convince her of your worth, she has no choice but to confront the truth that your presence was not guaranteed. You show her that you can walk away from what doesn't serve you, and that puts you back into your masculine center. Your self-respect becomes louder than any words you could have said. Another reason no contact is so effective is because it shifts emotional pursuit. In every relationship, someone is more invested at any given moment. When she pulled away, she was the one in control emotionally. But the second you stop reacting, the second you stop giving her the attention she once depended on, the emotional balance shifts. You are no longer the one chasing, you become the one she wonders about. The irony is that the less you try to win her back, the more she starts to care. This isn't manipulation, it's the natural outcome of removing yourself from a dynamic where you were giving too much and receiving too little. As time goes on, she begins to feel the contrast. Before no contact, she may have taken your consistency, your affection, your presence for granted. But now that it's gone, she feels its absence in ways she never anticipated. Humans, by nature, appreciate things more when they're taken away. In relationships, absence creates emotional pressure, and emotional pressure builds attraction. When she can no longer predict your behavior, when she can no longer rely on your messaging, when she can no longer count on you to show up as you always did, that unpredictability sparks emotional tension. This tension is what flips the power dynamic. She may start checking your social media, asking mutual friends about you, or sending small breadcrumb messages to gauge your interest. Your silence forces her to chase clarity, and the more she seeks clarity, the more attached she becomes. Women become emotionally invested when they feel something, and nothing makes a woman feel more intensely than the fear of losing a man who once valued her. No contact exposes her to that fear directly. She realizes that your attention was not something she could toy with. It was something meaningful, something she lost by her own actions. Ultimately, no contact works because it's the purest expression of self-worth. It shows that your respect for yourself is greater than your desire to force a connection. In that moment, you become the man she remembers, the man she once admired, the man she begins to miss. And that shift, where your silence carries more weight than your words ever did, is what truly drives her crazy. When you step back and implement no contact, the psychological impact it has on a woman's mind is far deeper than most men realize. Space is not empty to a woman. Space is where her imagination wakes up, where her emotions begin to swirl, and where uncertainty grows roots. When you stop communicating, when the calls and messages fade into silence, she doesn't simply register your absence logically, she absorbs it emotionally. That silence becomes a mirror that reflects her own insecurities, desires, doubts, and unresolved feelings. It forces her to confront an internal world she often avoids when she knows you're readily available. A woman's mind is naturally associative and reflective. When a man pulls away, her brain reflexively begins connecting dots, revisiting memories, replaying conversations, and searching for meaning in the silence. She may start asking herself, why hasn't he reached out? Did he stop caring? Was I wrong about how much he valued me? Has he moved on? These questions don't come all at once, they grow gradually, creeping into her thoughts at unexpected moments. It might start as a passing curiosity, but that curiosity deepens every day she doesn't hear from you. The absence becomes a stimulus that triggers emotional analysis. One of the most powerful psychological forces at play during no contact is the concept of uncertainty. People crave certainty because it provides emotional safety. When you were present, texting, pursuing, reassuring, she had certainty. She knew what you felt, what you wanted, and how much you cared. That stability allowed her to relax, sometimes too much, to the point where she took your interest for granted. But once you pull away, that stability shatters. The uncertainty that replaces it becomes a constant whisper in the back of her mind. It creates emotional friction that makes her pay attention, reflect, and reconsider her decisions. As days pass without communication, she begins to feel the emotional contrast. When someone is always there, it's easy to overlook the comfort they bring. But when that presence disappears, the mind magnifies the loss. She starts remembering the little things, the way you made her feel appreciated, the comfort of knowing you were always a message away, the validation she received from your attention. These memories rise not because she decides to miss you, but because the brain naturally gravitates toward what brought emotional security. With the security gone, the mind searches for it, and that search pulls her emotionally back toward you. Another psychological effect is curiosity, which can be more powerful than attraction itself. When she no longer knows what you're doing, who you're with, or how you feel, that curiosity starts to consume mental space. Curiosity turns into concern, concern shifts into longing, and longing evolves into desire. The irony is that the less information she has about you, the more she thinks about you. Silence makes you a mystery, and mystery has always been one of the strongest forces in attraction. Women are deeply emotional processors. They analyze nuances, tone changes, shifts in behavior, and patterns of attention. Your sudden silence becomes the biggest behavioral shift she has experienced from you. It disrupts her emotional expectations, and anytime expectations are disrupted, the mind tries to restore balance. The problem is she can't restore balance without you responding. That's when the psychological discomfort intensifies. She feels tension, and emotional tension often becomes indistinguishable from emotional longing. In fact, many women mistake the anxiety of uncertainty for missing someone. Your silence creates that emotional blend inside her. Furthermore, during no contact, she starts comparing. She compares you to other men she knows. She compares your connection to past relationships. She compares how she felt with you versus how she feels without you. This comparison often benefits you because your absence removes the negative tension that existed before and amplifies the positive memories. Without you actually being there, she can no longer anchor her feelings to the last argument, disagreement, or moment of frustration. She replays the highlights more than the low points. That natural filtering makes her idealize what she lost. Another subtle psychological shift happens when she begins wondering whether you're moving forward without her. A woman who once felt confident that you'd always be there now must confront the possibility that she is the one losing you, not the other way around. That fear pulls her emotionally closer. Even if she acted like she didn't care before, even if she seemed distant or detached, the idea of you detaching creates internal resistance. The mind doesn't easily let go of someone who once brought emotional significance. No contact also taps into a deeper psychological principle. People desire what feels scarce. Your presence used to be abundant, now it's gone. Humans value what they can't easily access. Your attention becomes rare, and rare things feel valuable. She feels that shift instinctively. She begins to wonder if you are becoming the man she always wanted you to be: stronger, more focused, more disciplined, and less reactive. Ultimately, the space created by no contact amplifies every emotion she has. It intensifies her curiosity, awakens her fears, deepens her reflection, and stimulates her longing. It's not the silence itself that drives her crazy. It's what the silence forces her to feel, think, and confront within herself. Your absence becomes a message far more powerful than anything you could express through words, and that is why it creates such a deep emotional curiosity and desire inside her. When you stop reaching out, stop trying to fix things, and stop acting from a place of fear or attachment, the energy she once felt from you changes. Instead of you pushing for connection, you become a mystery, someone she can no longer easily read or predict. And it is in that mystery where desire grows. Women are emotional beings who respond strongly to contrast, and nothing creates contrast more effectively than a man who steps fully into silence after giving consistent presence. When you were available, when you showed interest openly, she knew exactly where you stood. She never had to wonder how you felt or whether you cared. That predictability might have been comforting at first, but predictability kills emotional tension. When a woman knows you're always one message away, the emotional spark slowly dims. Your presence becomes expected. Your attention becomes routine. But when you vanish, that routine collapses. The emotional certainty she once relied on is replaced with unpredictability. Suddenly, she can't anticipate your next move. She can't predict your feelings. She can't rely on your attention. And a woman's mind becomes tightly focused on whatever she cannot predict. Your disappearance begins to stir her imagination. She starts asking herself questions she never needed to ask before. Asterisk, what is he doing? Why hasn't he reached out? Did he stop caring? Is he talking to someone else? Has he moved on? Asterisk, these thoughts don't just create curiosity. They create emotional discomfort. And when discomfort is tied to someone she cared for, that discomfort turns into longing. Longing evolves into desire. This happens because the mind can't stand an unresolved story. and your silence becomes the unresolved chapter she can't stop rereading in her head. Curiosity is powerful on its own, but what makes it even stronger is the contrast between who you were before and who you appear to be now. When you were present, she may have felt secure in your devotion, but now, when she sees you not reaching out, she begins to reconsider the emotional narrative she created about you. She begins wondering if she misjudged your level of attachment. She questions whether she misunderstood your intentions. She starts doubting whether you were as invested as she believed. And any time a woman begins to question her assumptions about a man, her emotional engagement increases. Without you intentionally doing anything, your silence communicates strength. It signals that you are not a man driven by desperation or fear of loss. Instead of trying to convince her of your worth, you allow your absence to demonstrate it. A man who can walk away shows that he values himself. And a woman's attraction for a man grows tremendously when she senses that he is centered, grounded, and emotionally independent. Your disappearance becomes evidence that you have a life, a purpose, and priorities outside of her. That elevates your desirability even more. Another factor that intensifies her emotional curiosity is the shift in attention. When you pull back, she suddenly feels the loss of the attention she once received from you. She notices the silence more than she ever noticed the messages. She becomes aware of your absence in moments she never anticipated when she's alone at night, when she sees something that reminds her of you, when she scrolls through her social media feed. Your presence used to be a constant she could count on, but now your energy is missing from her daily emotional landscape. That missing presence becomes a form of emotional pressure. This pressure is subtle at first, but as days and weeks pass, it intensifies. She starts checking her phone more often, scanning for your name. She looks at old photos, replays old messages, revisits your last conversations, all because your silence has activated her emotional recall. She might not admit this to anyone, not even to herself, but her mind begins to reach for you. She becomes more aware of how your absence makes her feel than she ever was of your presence. That shift is what deepens desire. What's even more powerful is that your silence also awakens her competitive instincts. If she believes you might be focusing on someone else, leveling up your life, or moving forward without her, the emotional stakes rise. Women are naturally competitive when it comes to matters of the heart. They don't want to lose a man who once valued them. The idea of you becoming unavailable or unattainable triggers desire far more than anything you could say or do while pursuing her. In the end, your absence creates an emotional landscape where tension, curiosity, insecurity, desire, and nostalgia all mix together. This emotional cocktail makes her crave the connection she once felt, but now cannot access. It's not that she suddenly realizes you were perfect. It's that she realizes the emotional impact of losing someone who once gave her certainty. And that realization is what makes your absence feel powerful, magnetic, and profoundly attractive. No contact only works when you truly move forward, because the power of silence comes from authenticity, not strategy. Many men think no contact is a technique to get her back, a reverse psychology trick to make her chase. But when a man uses silence as a manipulation tool, he is still emotionally attached, still waiting, still hoping, and still centering his life around her. A woman can feel that energy even from a distance. She senses when you're pretending to move on verses, when you genuinely shift your focus toward becoming a better version of yourself. Real no contact is not about punishing her, it's about reclaiming your emotional center, and that shift is what creates the magnetic pull that drives her crazy. When you genuinely move forward, your mindset changes. You stop checking your phone every hour to see if she reached out. You stop obsessing over what she's thinking or doing. You stop playing scenarios in your head about how she might come back. Instead, your life becomes your priority again. Your goals, your ambitions, your routine, your sense of purpose take center stage. You begin rebuilding the parts of yourself you neglected while trying to win her affection. That self-investment makes you stronger, more confident, and more grounded. Women are drawn to men who are rooted in self-respect. What she feels from you isn't emptiness or bitterness, it's maturity and inner strength. When you truly move forward, your energy shifts from "I hope she comes back" to "I'll be fine even if she doesn't." That energy is powerful. It communicates self-worth without you saying a single word, and when a woman feels that shift, it creates emotional tension inside her. She begins to question whether she misjudged your strength or underestimated your resilience. She wonders how you found stability without her. That curiosity becomes emotional pressure, and that pressure turns into attraction. Women desire the men who desire themselves. It's counterintuitive, but a man who builds his own life becomes 10 times more appealing than a man who puts his life on hold for her. Authentic no-contact works because it creates contrast. When she left or pulled away, she was likely expecting you to fall apart, chase harder, or spiral emotionally. That's what most men do when they lose someone they care about. But when you do the opposite, when you stay grounded, focused, and composed, it disrupts the narrative she created about you. It forces her to reevaluate who you are. She starts to see you through a different lens. Instead of seeing a man who depended on her validation, she sees a man who stands on his own. That contrast is what sparks reattraction. She begins to wonder what caused the change. She begins to question whether losing you was a mistake. Moving forward also changes your behavior in ways that make you more attractive without even trying. You start improving your physical health, working out, eating better, dressing better, not to impress her, but because you want growth. You invest in new skills, hobbies, ambitions, and friendships. You become more interesting, more alive, more driven. A man on a mission radiates natural confidence. That confidence becomes undeniable, and whether she admits it or not, she feels it. When she sees the new version of you, or even senses it through your silence, it triggers curiosity and respect. She begins to feel that you are no longer the man she left behind. You've become someone she might lose forever if she doesn't act. Another reason true forward movement makes no contact powerful is that it removes pressure from the dynamic. When you stop waiting, she stops feeling pursued. When you stop obsessing, she stops feeling smothered. That emotional space allows her to reflect on her own feelings without defensiveness. Instead of feeling chased, she begins to feel the absence of your presence. And absence awakens appreciation. It's only when she feels your loss, without sensing your desperation, that her heart opens. She begins to miss the version of you that was confident, grounded, and emotionally stable, the version she now sees coming back to life. Most importantly, moving forward ensures that no matter what happens, whether she returns or doesn't, you evolve into a stronger man. The outcome becomes irrelevant because your growth becomes the priority. The moment you no longer depend on the relationship for emotional completion is the moment you regain true power. You stop trying to control the situation. You stop trying to control her emotions. You simply control yourself. And that's the foundation of masculine strength. This is why no contact only works when you genuinely move forward. When the silence is backed by growth, purpose, and authenticity, she feels it deeply. That feeling is what drives her crazy, not because you're playing a game, but because she realizes she might lose a man who finally realized his worth.